All right, welcome everyone. Thank you for, I was thinking as folks are getting connected to audio. Thanks for everyone for joining us today. It's been a little while, thanks since December. Looking forward to getting into some 3DEP for the Nation updates and activities. Got a cool meeting lined up for today. We'll hear some updates from Brian Hadley from the USGS. I'll give a few updates, and then we'll hear a presentation from Paul Dudley and Dennis Peterson from Tennessee on their state architecture and how they kind of established their program, what led to that, and the success they've had sharing data and training folks in their state on how to use it. Let's see. Awesome. I'm going to keep track of some stats here and give folks a few more minutes to join. As you're joining, we got a little bit of time at the beginning here. Anyone have any particular, anything particularly exciting going on in your state, or any 3DEP activity that you'd like to share before we get going? All right, no worries. I always try to make it a little engaging, but it'd be weird to be put on the spot. Still have folks coming in, but I'm going to go ahead and start sharing, and that way we can get into just some administrative agenda, give you guys a roadmap of where we're going to go today. All right, great. I'm going to turn off my video to save some bandwidth. So hello, everyone. Great to see you. Thanks for joining us today. Oh, and I'm, of course, started at the end of my presentation here. Apologies. You are in the NSGIC 3D elevation program for the nation. NSGIC, we're partnering with USGS to help align state and vendor activities with the USGS 3DEP program so that everyone can maximize those dollars and create real value for your citizens and programs. This is the interest group meeting where we combine state representatives, vendors, partners, and USGS folks to get an update on everything 3DEP for the nation that's coming out of NSGIC. All right, so today, welcome. We're going to start off with a USGS update from Brian Hadley. I'll give you a little bit of an update on what I've been working on with the 3DEP for the Nation program. And then our spotlight today is going to be a presentation from Paul and Dennis out of Tennessee on their success coordinating vendors, sharing data, and establishing training programs so people can actually use this data and put it to work. And I've got a few reminders at the end. And Brian, I don't know if I saw you come in.
Yep.
We have Brian. Awesome. Hey, Brian, you want to kick us off with an update?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Jordan. I'm very excited that Jordan's joined this team. He's a lot of enthusiasm for the program and where we're going, and this partnership between USGS and NSGIC has been really successful over the years. And so really excited to have him. He has some fresh ideas, yeah, looking forward to him getting to know you guys and getting an opportunity to work with him. So it was nice to be at Geo Week this week. I saw several of you I see that are here in the meeting. It was nice to touch base with you guys, and I'm getting back in the swing of things. I lost my voice a little bit. I get to talk too much at Geo Week, so bear with me if my voice cracks here a little bit. But Jordan asked me to just give a quick status update. Some of you that were at the state team meeting a week or two ago, this is familiar, but we'll repeat it anyways. current status of the data collaboration announcement, and again, for folks that are new, the data collaboration announcement replaced the broad agency announcement in FY24. It's essentially a very similar partnership program, opportunity for state, federal, tribal, academic folks to partner with the USGS on data acquisition activities. And so we anticipate the DCA for FY24 being open through June of 2024. At present, as many of you know, we do not have a federal budget, and so we're operating on a continuing resolution, and I am I'm being a little bit cautious with project planning and awarding at the moment, just because we're just going to be I'm going to wait and see how things shake out. I will let folks know if you have interest in the DCA, please don't hesitate to apply. I do anticipate there will be more opportunities. But as of right now, we've received 16 proposals in 14 states, and we've accepted 9 of those proposals in 9 states, total valued at about $27 million worth of acquisition and equating to about 59,000 square miles of data. The projects that you see in the medium green, the ones that are DCAs are Houston, Texas. You can see we're very excited about that project. We're excited about Western Arkansas. Arkansas will be one of the first states that'll have next-gen compliant data for the entire state. You see Southern Missouri, a project in Wisconsin, Maine, Massachusetts, down in New Jersey, and a couple of counties down in Florida, Pinellas and Hillsborough counties. And so, as I say, there's going to be more. We're just sort of getting started this year, but that's where we're at right now on acquisition. And just give me a second here, and if there's folks have questions, I'm happy to answer them. The LiDAR base specification, revision A 2024, was posted on 131. So that is up. Really largely what we did there was we adopted the ASPRS accuracy standards. Those were reviewed internally by USGS and by the 3DEP working group. And the base specification was updated after that. And so the plan is to include the base spec 2024 revision in task orders that go out, well, effectively from about this point forward. There may have been 1 or 2 that are going to sneak out that may have been the previous version of the base spec. But moving forward, our hope is we're going to have the new task orders reflective of the most current base spec. And I know Walter and the contracting folks at CPT are working on those updates to the task order templates. And so expect to see that. I'm not going to go too far down into this. I think a lot of you are very aware of what the changes are. One of them I'll note is QL0. It was difficult to meet the vertical accuracy requirements of 3x on the vertical accuracy of the checkpoints. And so the checkpoint standard was relaxed to 2 times the vertical accuracy of the LiDAR data for the checkpoints. It should make meeting the number for 5 centimeters of vertical accuracy on a QL10 or QL0 project, achieving a 2.5 centimeter vertical accuracy on the checkpoints is a little more realistic than the 1.66 number that surveying folks know is even tough for surveying great GPS and stuff. So that's one. And then dropping the pass fail for vegetated vertical accuracy. That's one that I think creates some mixed feelings for folks. I'm happy to answer questions about that, or specifically if you want to talk about how it might impact a task order or project for 3DEP that you're interested in. Let us know. I certainly can put folks in touch with NGTalk as well, who understand that all the nuances of that a little better than I do. Lastly, I will say something we're really excited about. The tribal notification, tribal relations team led by Cindy Thatcher, they got out the first week in February. National notification letter went out to approximately 900 different tribes, Alaska corporations, Hawaii corporations. And so we're changing our tribal notification process a little bit. And what this latest notification went out, it'll be a 60-day notification period in which tribes have a chance to respond. Anything from requesting that there be redactions of their data all the way up to formal consultations with the USGS to understand this process. We're going to have 2 webinars. And Jordan, thank you for adding that to the slide. March 11th and March 22nd, Sue Budo and I are going to host a couple of webinars in which the tribes will be able to come and ask questions. We're going to talk about what LiDAR data is, what 3D HP is, what the notification process is. And so the fundamental difference here is that once this notification period goes out and the notification period of 60 days expires, we will no longer provide notification before data acquisition. Notifications will occur before publication of data. And one of the benefits to this for the 3DEP program and our commercial partners are that it should make it a little easier to meet timeframes. One of the challenges of the DCA is when we get the DCA out in the September and sometimes the October timeframe, tribal notification agreements, all the steps that we need to achieve before we can award projects. If you wanted a leaf off acquisition that winter, that spring, sometimes it can be a heavy lift for us to achieve all those things. So the hope is you get the DCA out a little bit earlier, the tribal notification backs off to before publication, and should be making things a little bit more flexible for us to achieve those aggressive timelines for leaf off the same year that the DCA goes out, that winter and that spring leaf off season. So with that, I will stop there. I'm happy to answer any questions that folks have.
Questions for Brian? You can feel free to pop them in the chat or raise your hand, and I'd be happy to click on you.
I think I may have seen one from Sean go in.
Yeah, Brian, I threw a comment in there, just thinking about how we use this map, and it's remarkable in a sense to see the dark green encompassing the nation and where we were in like 2009, 10, 11, when the early days of promoting 3DEP. But it's also taking on a different meaning now to see this map in green where it looks very complete. And even in the state of Minnesota, where we're nearing completion of our 3DEP acquisitions to blanket our state, we're hearing more people sense that we're complete when really we need to be ensuring that there's an ongoing continuation of the next generation. And in your case, for your program, 3D national train model. And so I'm just wondering out loud, asking out loud, sparking some dialogue for a map that maybe would reflect vintage that would accompany this map. Just some thoughts coming off the top of my head as I look at that map and struggle with how people see maps as being complete or incomplete for work.
I think that's an interesting comment. I just told you when I saw you in Denver, Shauna, you always do have insightful, good comments. If you saw it in the presentation that I gave at GeoWeek, Shauna, I had a map that showed vintage. I don't know what your thoughts are on that. I think this map that you see now has sort of been the traditional partnership map. I do think that there is some confusion at times because I think people see the green and don't realize that many of the projects may be in progress. We do say that in the legend, but it doesn't always maybe doesn't always maybe register with folks that you spent, particularly out west, a lot of that area that's dark green is still under progress. And Drew, I think I saw a comment from you about the contributed data. That's relatively new. I think we started doing that maybe year and a half ago, where we started showing the contributed data sets. Those are all pending, and really what that means is they are in the queue for review, but we have not spent time looking at them yet. We do have a fairly significant contributed queue backlog. I've told this group that before, and we're working on solutions. In order to make the entire map dark green, those contributed data sets do need to be resolved, and it's one of the things that is a high priority for me. We're looking at, can we bring those up to specification? What needs to be done to make them work? And so I think there's an opportunity for a variety of cartographic products that are gonna be descriptive of the status of things. I do think that some ideas from this group about how do we show things that would also be beneficial for the story we want to tell about next gen. I think most people that are geospatial that work in this field understand that multi-temporal data increases the value of all the data sets exponentially when we start stacking data sets. But how do we depict that? And I do think that for the DCA moving forward with the program, the way we've set it up for acquisition, being eligible for partnership dollars from USGS at 5 years of age, in CONUS 8 years for the Pacific Islands and Alaska. I think there probably is some ways that we need to think about communication and making sure our strategy is hitting people. Sean, that's a long-winded answer, and I think it is open for discussion, something we're thinking about. And so, yeah, I'm curious if other folks have input.
Well, while others are thinking here, and if there's time, I'll just add, Brian, that I was just thinking about this on the plane yesterday, coming back to Minnesota, to continue to market the need for ongoing updated LiDAR to do exactly you spoke about, which is temporal representation of the landscape. But we use this map a lot, and I forgot about your vintage map out there, but it seems to me like when one map is used, the other map should be used as well, or there should be maybe a series of 2 or 3 maps where we can better convey the message so that they're used in tandem to one map supports the other. Because the success of 3DEP is the partners, and like in Minnesota, our strong partnership with 3DEP, we wouldn't have LiDAR data in Minnesota without 3DEP. But we did that through appropriate coordination and communication of helping those understand the need, the program, and you have to do that with maps in so many ways to bring across that messaging. And right now, a lot of folks are seeing maps that look complete, whether it's an individual for a state or overall for a nation. And that concerns me. So I'm just looking for ways to better market and not go down the path of everything that we use looks like it's complete. And I'll stop there. Thanks.
Oh, I think those are good comments.
Yeah, thank you, Sean. I think it's an excellent insight there, especially as we are moving into a lot of requirements and need for data refresh. A big topic on the top of NSGIC's agenda, and I think all of yours agenda, is how do we build excitement? How do we have consistent messaging in order to rally stakeholders and really get them to understand that continual data collection is really where the true value can be unlocked. So I think that's an excellent point. Thank you for bringing it up. Does anyone else have any questions for Brian on the USGS update? Thank you, Brian, for answering Don's question in the chat there. Perfect. All right, great. So if there are no questions more for Brian, we're going to head and move forward into the NSGIC 3DEP for the Nation project update. Well, one of our big areas of focus this year is facilitating coordination with allied communities, including the National Tribal Geospatial Information Support Center and the Association of American State Geologists. I actually met with Gail from AASG earlier this week, had a great conversation. Again, we talked about the need for that data refresh and how do we build excitement there. And she keyed me in on a few exciting use cases that I think will be really cool to add to our quiver. And then NSGIC, I'll be meeting with Aaron Fashaway in the coming weeks to make moves on that. If anyone has any specific feedback or recommendations on how to engage and get more folks in on the conversation, please feel free to email me separately or even drop something in the chat here. On that same note, based off of the state priorities and our jam at the last interest group meeting, a huge topic of conversation is building excitement and how do you build that excitement to secure sustainable funding. So a big prong of our efforts this year is going to be expanding that planning guide that we have published with a securing funding subsection. Within this subsection, I'll be detailing how can you collect case studies, really demonstrate the value of your state 3DEP programs. How do you make those case studies available? And then even going into, how do you tailor proposals and focusing on the specific sources of funding and developing messages that will really resonate with them. So looking forward to building that out. If anyone has any feedback or advice or something that you really want to see there, again, feel free to reach out to me either in the chat here or by email. And then last up on the NSGIC project updates, looking to line up a panel for our May interest group meeting. The date still to be determined, but I'd love to consider as we start moving into next gen and the future of 3D elevation, what are all of the different platforms that might be viable and how do we really extend these dollars and collect wide areas? So getting a panel together of traditional aerial collection vendors, as well as those folks who may not be 3DEP compliant today, but may come into compliance in the future at those high altitude programs in the satellite collection. So just giving you an idea of what's out there and what might be on the horizon. Any questions on the NSGIC 3DEP for the Nation project efforts? All right, awesome. Well, with that, we'll move on to the presentation from Tennessee. I'd love to give everyone a chance to see what they've been up to. They've have a pretty mature program and have found a lot of success in getting folks to use their data and training them on their data. So I'm going to give up my share here, and Paul and Dennis, if you want to go ahead and share your screen, I know you have a great presentation lined up for us.
Thanks, Jordan. Appreciate the opportunity to be part of today's presentation. Yeah, excited about sharing Tennessee's experience with 3DEP and how we've matured with our LiDAR program. In particular, we want to talk today about our coordination efforts, our outreach, and how we've developed sort of our architecture for supporting data access and dissemination. And I'm going to be fairly brief. I'm going to set the stage a little bit, and then I want to turn it over to Paul Dudley, who is one of my team members and has really done a lot of great work in supporting many aspects of our LiDAR program in Tennessee. But before I go to the next slide here, I just want to make sure everyone understands we're part of the Department of Finance Administration in the Strategic Technology Solutions Group. So it's basically the enterprise IT within state government. And within that, we're part of the Center for Enterprise Data and Analytics. And so we have a variety of GIS functions that we perform. I'm not going to go into all those today, but obviously we're going to be talking about GS coordination around framework data, and obviously particular with the 3DEP LiDAR program in our state. Next slide, Paul. So we wanted to talk about briefly sort of the history behind how we got involved with 3DEP and sort of what led to our success. We also wanted to share with you stakeholder and partner coordination, and then really dive into our data program architecture regarding access and dissemination, and our training program, which again, Paul Dudley has been a key player in the success behind a lot of that. And then finally jump into sort of what we envision as the future being in our state and how we're going to be moving forward with the 3D NTM with 3DEP in particular. So yeah, next slide. So real brief, how we got involved with 3DEP, going back to the early 2000s, we had some state appropriations to support what we call the initial development of the Tennessee base mapping program, which was about an 8-year effort that funded a lot of our framework data development, statewide imagery, elevation data, statewide parcels, and other planimetric data layers. And at the end of that effort, we kind of realized the elevation data was suitable for orthorectification, but really didn't quite meet the standards for a lot of other elevation requirements for analysis and what have you. So what we did after writing a business plan that kind of outlined sort of the next phase of the Tennessee base mapping program is we applied for and received a grant from FGDC to develop a business plan for the development of our what we called enhanced elevation at the time, using LiDAR technology. And through that CAP grant, which took about a year for all the stakeholder engagement and regional workshops, we had like 5 regional workshops that we led in various parts across Tennessee. And we really sold the idea of, why does Tennessee need to invest in enhanced elevation data? And at the conclusion of that, the business plan development, we had a pilot project that we got off the ground with some internal funding and resources to just do a 1-county pilot. And there's a certain level of serendipity between our efforts and our business plan and the timing of when 3DEP really became a program. And at the conclusion of our pilot project is when 3DEP obviously really got a lot of momentum and became a viable, fully funded program that we were able to tap into. And so we worked with obviously USGS and 3DEP then from 2015 through 2021 to develop the rest of the enhanced elevation data throughout our state. So really what I want to do now is turn it over to Paul and let him kind of take it from here and really dive into the nuts and bolts of coordination and data access and dissemination. So Paul, it's all yours.
Thanks much, Dennis. And thanks to Jordan for organizing this and giving us the opportunity to come and speak today. I look at it as an opportunity to just share a little bit about what we've been doing, and hopefully we'll be able to see what other states have been able to do as well. I know just in our last meeting that we had, that state coordination meeting. I learned some great things about the work that's been going on in Washington, and so appreciate the opportunity for us to share with NSGIC. So yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about our stakeholder coordination and how that kind of came to be. So Dennis mentioned those workshops and the business plan, putting those together and identifying who those main funding partners are. And as the years have gone by, we've kind of identified some of those major players. And at the state level, that's really been the Tennessee Department of Transportation. They've got a lot of use cases for accurate LiDAR data and elevation data. Additionally, our Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation, and that group encompasses a lot of different divisions, and some of those being water or mine reclamation, the mining group, state parks. So they've got a lot under their purview, and they're big users and contributors and funding partners as well. We've additionally been able to chip in some funding, so Department of Finance and Administration. And then we've had various county and city governments, specifically our larger counties that have the funding available, and they'd be out, tackling their own LiDAR projects, and instead they're partnering with us, which has been, a great addition to the team. And then last but not least, the federal partners. So USDA NRCS has been a standout in being able to provide funding, specifically in our West Tennessee area that's really flat, Mississippi River Valley. They do a lot of work there, and their funding has been, outstanding. We'll also work with the Tennessee Valley Authority. They're a large power company, essentially, or power authority. For those of you in other parts of the country, TVA essentially helps get power to multiple states. And then obviously USGS. I forget who mentioned it earlier on the call, but we wouldn't been able to, we wouldn't be where we are today without the partnership with USGS and the 3DEP program. And so how does that communication happen? And really, it's been through working relationships with our department and all of these particular stakeholders. So we have contacts at, those various city, local governments, or whether it's, the Fed partners, and then we work, closely with our state agencies. And additionally, a lot of those working relationships really fostered through programs like this one at NSGIC. But then also we have a very strong local GIS community, TNGIC. That's our GIS user community, essentially. And a lot of those members, let's say USDA NRCS, those local and city governments, county and city governments, the main GIS users for the state agencies, they're all attending the TNGIC conferences and participating. And so really we've been able to rally a lot of buy-in and figure out, use cases from them. It's been a great way to make that communication happen. Additionally, we've been able to come up with, a great, I think, a methodology for coordinating with our acquisition partners, and those being USGS and specifically the USGS GPSC contractor. And in our case, Woolpert has been the contractor that has handled all of the LiDAR collections to date. We've participated and understand that there are several methodologies for states to participate in the 3DEP program. We've been, started with the BAA and essentially used USGS. They have been able to handle the contract, and it really kind of takes a lot off of the state's plate. And it's been very successful in Tennessee. And kudos to Woolpert for all the great work that they've done. But again, it all goes back to communication and building those particular relationships. And again, this may be different in your state. It's just how it works in ours, and we've seen some success there. I mentioned TNGIC, that local GIS community. We have input and folks coming from USGS as well as Woolpert to, our TNGIC conferences. We're able to communicate and coordinate there. Additionally, too, I want to mention the USGS National Map Liaison. Ours is George Helene, and he's been absolutely fantastic to work with and work through on specific projects and kind of helping us prioritize what, what our needs are and finding out what our needs are. And I do have that bullet on there is like prioritize our needs. Again, USGS here is the contract holder, but we're an in-data user and we provide funding. So, we've been able to kind of insert ourselves into some of this into the communication loop so that we can figure out, how is USGS going to share the data? What are the gaps that maybe we can fill for our local users? What are the specific timelines? When are we going to see the data? How can we communicate that to our user base and our stakeholders? And then, at some points, can we get a preliminary look at the data so we can get more comfortable with it so that we can better communicate, again, with our user community. And speaking about that user community, who are they, and trying to figure out really, the different organizations or parts of business that are using the LiDAR and who can benefit. And we have several things that we've done here. One of them being we needed a feedback mechanism. So we have several surveys that we've created to try to figure out exactly how our users in Tennessee are benefiting or using the LiDAR data. And that's helped us populate a good list of kind of concrete use cases and benefits that, hopefully we'll be able to use now with, refreshes coming along and things. Additionally, it all comes down to, you don't want this data that is super valuable to sit on the shelf. And so we've instituted a training program that at first we went out in person and trained 400 plus users, going to universities and setting up a training for 15 to 50 people and letting them know, hey, here's the LiDAR data, here's how you access it, and here's how you can put it to use. And that training program has evolved, and I'll show a little bit of that in here in just a moment. But additionally, and this has kind of been a challenge too, is identifying those users and trying to do outreach. So all of these different user communities, whether it's the state agency users, our TNGIC community, floodplain administrators, stormwater, engineering groups, surveyors, et cetera. All of these people have professional groups. And so we've done a lot of outreach, and for lack of a better term, kind of been elevation evangelists, going out and telling people that, hey, this data exists, put it to use. I gave a presentation recently to a state archaeologist meeting, and it was awesome to see how many people had already discovered our data, and also awesome to see how many people could benefit from it. So it's kind of, I don't know, it's fun to see. And really, all this to say is that it's really been a team effort. It has been, and it will continue to be a team effort. Everybody has to have a seat at the boat, and there has to be effective communication. If one of those people doesn't pick up the oar, the boat's not going to exactly go very straight, right? So all effective communication and all of those pieces and parts all really working together. And now I'm going to cover our LiDAR hub, just show you a little bit about the architecture and how we've shared information about our LiDAR program. So we have, this is built on ArcGIS Hub technology. This is essentially our landing page. This is lidar.tn.gov. It makes it a really short, easy way to sell and market. lidar.tn.gov is very memorable, very easy to remember. But essentially, this is our hub where you can get all kinds of information, whether or not you're new to LiDAR, and I'm not going to dive too far into this. We'll share the link in the chat, and you can explore. But if you're new to LiDAR, you don't know who can benefit, what is it even, what products and what use cases, so we go through the DM, what are its particular use cases. We have information on our projects and how that coordination has happened. I mentioned TNGIC as well as USGS, and pointing people to the 3DEP program so they can learn more. Who are our project partners? I mentioned all those county and city folks. So just trying to give a place for us to to share more information about all of that coordination that has happened. I marked this down as one of our successes, and I think the training program I mentioned has evolved. It used to be in person, which was really great, but especially with COVID and all the timing and all that kind of stuff, it really made sense for us to move this into a digital format. So we've put all of our training into YouTube videos. So we have just a simple introduction. Here's what the LiDAR data is. Here's the different ways you can access it. And then how can you put it to use? So whether or not it's using it in Esri software, or our biggest data users that we really didn't know much about is like engineers and surveyors. They don't necessarily have an Esri license, but they need to be able to, we need to empower them to be able to use the data, and again, so it doesn't sit on the shelf. So we've done a lot of work using QGIS, that FOSS4G, free and open source, to let people know that, hey, you can use this data. The last page I'll show you and just briefly go through here is our data and downloads page, which is, it's going to obviously be our most popular page on the site. But we offer the data in kind of a different way than USGS. We partnered with, I mentioned NSGIC. We are storing our LiDAR data in a different format, so a ZLAS format, and then we have the DEMs as well as contours, and then we share the building footprints here as well. And then we point to the USGS ways to access. So it's really cool in that our users get kind of different ways depending on what their software platforms are, or how they need to use the data. We give them multiple ways to do that. So obviously USGS has the great LiDAR Explorer. They have their web service so that you can stream, the DEMs in and slope, etc. This one I've really promoted to non-GIS users a lot. This is the 3DEP web viewer. If you're not familiar with it, it's an awesome tool. Essentially, it's bringing in that DEM service, and you're enabling a non-GIS user to be able to go to their farm or their property and look at what does it look like with contours and a slope map or a hillshade. Really powerful. And then we just have a couple little other things that I'm not really going to dive too much into. Just access to our previous collects and different ways to access the data. I will just go quickly to our application. Again, this is just our way of sharing the data a little bit differently. With the USGS, you can take an AOI and select a specific group of LiDAR tiles or products to download. But the way we have it shared, again, is NSGIC is paying the bill for Google Drive storage, which is extremely economical, and I'll talk a little bit about in just a moment. But it enables people to download an entire county's worth of DEMs, and these are all zipped. But you can download, if you're a surveyor and you're only doing work in specific counties, you get access to a large download capability. And then we just have the rest of our tile or our information, contours, buildings, those different products and things. So this really gives people an easy platform to go and access the data. Hopefully you got to hear my dog running through the house. That was fun. The last thing I'll touch on is, and I can't really see because the Zoom information, but our LiDAR use survey, I mentioned that we needed a feedback mechanism. And this is linked on our front page. And this has been kind of a grassroots thing. We haven't really promoted this too much to a specific user base. And essentially, it just gives people a way to fill out their name, email, organization, and then how they're actually using the LiDAR. And this has been a really good way for us to get feedback. We've had this up since 2019, and we've received almost 80 answers. And again, this has been organically. But the telling thing here, and I mentioned that group of users that we didn't really account for early on, is the private sector engineering and surveying community. And they've been a huge user. I'll get lots of questions from them, hey, how can I bring this into my CAD? And that's really what spawned the QGIS training and focus on that. But that 59% of our respondents have been on the private sector, so pretty neat. I'm going to flow back now to our presentation and talk about a couple of successes and challenges that we've had. I think giving that data access a little bit of we're offering multiple ways to access the data has been a real success. It's opened it up for different types of users, and as I mentioned, different sectors. Cheap storage. So the NSGIC pays for 25 plus terabytes of Google Drive storage for less than $100 a month, which is, I'm not sure that Google would be super happy about the way that we're sharing. I don't know. But it's been super awesome because it's really cost effective. So essentially, NSGIC has a business license with Google, and then we're able to store that much data and provide links to people so they can download imagery and LiDAR. Our hub has been super successful in providing people a way to gain access to all this information. So we've received over 5,000 views just in the past 30 days, which is, when I checked it before this meeting, I was like, wow, that's a lot higher than I anticipated. It's been a little bit more. I'm not sure what caused the jump. Maybe our elevation evangelism is working. I think the training program also has been really successful in, again, getting people to use the data so it doesn't sit on the shelf, make them aware, training and outreach, really. And then I think coordination, bringing 25 plus partners to the table, those city, local governments, and, get all that funding together has been a real success so far. And then I wanted to list a couple of challenges that we've been faced with, and maybe some that we're currently going through, in hopes to get feedback and maybe just open up some discussions maybe after this webinar. But reaching new users, how I'm curious to know what other states are doing as far as their outreach. We've tried to find those different user communities and get in front of them, but it's really hard, I think, to know the users that you don't know about. Additionally, the refresh funding, it talked about that, and Jordan mentioned that's really going to be, I think, and selling the refresh is going to be difficult, and we're going through that right now. Additionally, quantifying return, I think it's difficult for our program, or at least to kind of figure out and how it's impacting users. We can get some use cases from them, from these surveys and things, but you can't really, it's hard to put a number or even quantify how much it's actually benefiting, your state and your stakeholders. And the last thing is state services. So, this big data, and we've really relied, and this hasn't necessarily been a bad thing, but I think there are some things that we could have done differently, or we could do. It's state services, right? We've been relying on USGS and their infrastructure to share the DEM services. And we tried to go through our own creation of state service and just ran into issues and infrastructure and lots of different things there that kind of went into that. But I think that was definitely a challenge that we faced. Now, we've got the Living Atlas, we've got the LiDAR data on Amazon, LiDAR data on the Microsoft Planetary API. You can access it from all of these different ways. And so I'm not necessarily, like I said, not saying that's necessarily a bad thing, but it's been a challenge. Future, last slide here. Continuing to build on our success. Yeah, hopefully we can really continue to push for that refresh and selling that. We've started up a 3DEP and 3D HP working group internal to the state to try to better communicate with our stakeholders and coordinate, what areas of interest are we interested in, and who's going to help pay for this and that kind of stuff. It's been I think it'll be a really good step in selling that refresh. Speaking of the 3DEP refresh, so right now I'm trying to work on kind of a one-pager, and maybe, Jordan, this maybe if other states are interested, I'd love to try to work together, is come up with a way to, as Joanne put it from Washington in a call last week, is like really sell the refresh. And so I've been trying to come up with like a one-pager that we can send to our coordinating partners and to their leadership so they know how this data is being used and why it's important to do that refresh. And I did this as soon as Sean mentioned it. I really liked your idea, Sean, on a specific map that communicates maybe the vintage, and say, that would be an easy thing to show our coordinator or our stakeholders and say, hey, we're getting old in the tooth in these 5 collection areas. Do we need, can we push funding into this specific area? And so I think that's a great idea, and that's something I'm definitely going to work on for Tennessee. 2 other things, I think we could expand on our training videos, and they've been really successful, but I think they need updating. They're starting to get a little bit older, and currently our hub is getting a refresh. If you visited our hub a couple weeks ago, it would have looked a little bit different based on the user experience and talking to folks and figuring out, as we've moved on in our development, being able to just improve the user interface, just trying to keep up to date. So that's really that. It kind of covers the future part of it, and really covers I guess everything. That's the last slide that I had. I'm happy to take any questions, and feel free to explore lidar.tn.gov, and happy to share more if you're interested in the training program or what have you. I'm happy to share more, and I'd love to hear what other states are doing, because that's how we learn, if we can share what we're doing.
Before we open it up, Paul, this is Dennis again. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention FEMA as a significant partner. Tennessee is a cooperating technical partner on their risk map program, and FEMA obviously has been a significant contributor, not directly on Tennessee proposals, but through federal funding supporting 3DEP at the larger funding level. They've been a significant player, and I just want to acknowledge FEMA. And we actually, through our role as a CTP, work with the FEMA contractors in providing LiDAR data to support projects related to risk map in our state. So I saw Laura Algio on the list of attendees. So shout out to Laura and FEMA and risk map. So yeah, I know there was at least one question in the chat, Paul. I'm not sure if you saw that or if you have a comment on that.
Reading right now. So the question is, as far as your user base and what you knew or thought you knew before launching the hub, i.e. when I referenced the number of private sector or open source users, what do you wish you knew then that you know now, and how do you plan to monitor your users' changing needs? Yeah, I think I wish that we had a better handle on the use cases in non-GIS, in the non-GIS sector, if that makes sense. That private sector is telling on who's really benefiting from that. And I mentioned this to Lindsay on our last call, and she mentioned that maybe we could look for some funding from the private sector community. I don't know if that where that will go, but I think that was definitely what I wish I had known. Monitor the user's changing needs, I think, is just keeping those lines of communication open and I don't necessarily have a plan. Hopefully we can continue to push people to provide us with feedback on how they're using it. And if there are specific needs, we've tried to keep those lines of communication open, whether it be, providing us feedback or going out and meeting people face to face and talking to them about how they're using it. All right, just kind of looking through the questions. Speak about if you have experienced appreciation for the 3DEP data in the terms of the fact that the data meets, is it LBS? I can't see because of Zoom. So greater support for the data because it is essentially 3DEP certified data. I don't know if I've seen specific appreciation because it's 3DEP. I think maybe because it's a national program, and so then it gets a little bit more recognition as maybe for coordination, like funding. I would say that our state agency folks would say that they're willing to help support in this national program. I think maybe that could be part of it. I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah, Paul, this is Sean. It does, but where I'm going with it is there is LiDAR being collected at all times, all across the nation. And in our state here of Minnesota, that's very much the case. There's appreciation for 3DEP and the data that we get out of it, but I'm trying to put more emphasis on the fact that it is certified, it has met protocol, and we need to do that, I feel, to bring separation to this data that we've accepted as authoritative. I think we need to put more emphasis on the fact of all the traits that it brings. It aligns. It's seamless. The list will go on. I'm not going to do it. This folks, everyone here knows those attributes of that data. But it's something I don't tend to see come to the forefront for marketing. And in a sense, maybe my question is getting at the fact that I feel an urgency to build greater appreciation for the data, for more buy-in. And buy-in gets to what I was getting at earlier about marketability for continuation of the program, so then we all can benefit from it. That's where I was going with it.
Yeah, no, that's a great input for sure. I don't see any additional questions, but thanks for the time, and I'm always happy, like I said, to follow up later.
Awesome.
Yeah, put my contact info in the chat.
Great. Thank you, Paul. I really like the idea of a collaborative one-pager. I'm thinking of ways where we can get together and have a productive conversation around it. For now, I have set up a Google Doc and dropped it into the group discussion board. Feel free to collaborate there. I just dropped a couple of quick ideas from Paul's discussion there. I think as we've touched on multiple points throughout this meeting, heavy on a huge topic on everyone's mind is how do we make the case for refresh? The first generation of 3DEP acquisition was expensive. Why do we need to go out and do it again in order to fully maximize that data's value? All right, does anyone any other questions for Paul before we move on? I don't want to be too hasty here. Definitely want to give everyone a chance to weigh in. All right, awesome. Just had this weird urge to go into my parliamentary procedure of seeing none, we shall move forward on the docket. Sorry, weird aside. Here we go. And just to wrap up, I do want to put in a few reminders on upcoming NSGIC events. We have, and of course, there we go. we've got the mid-year meeting coming up at the end of March, March 24th through 28th. If you haven't signed up for that already, I think if Lindsay, if you're still on, if you wouldn't mind dropping some info on registering for that in the link, that would be awesome. Other than that, I can share that out in the interest group discussion board as well. And then we also have a May interest group meeting, still trying to lock down the date on that one. That's going to be the LiDAR acquisition today and tomorrow, a panel discussion of existing LiDAR acquisition methodologies today and what might be viable tomorrow. I'd love if anyone has any ideas or interest in participating on that panel, feel free to reach out to me offline and we can work on that. Still working on some logistics there. And I'd love to have anyone who wants to participate being on there, because I think it'd be a really cool discussion. But I think that wraps it up for today. Again, thank you, Paul and Dennis. Awesome presentation. It's really great to see what you guys have done in Tennessee. Really appreciate how you walked us through the history of the program, what you guys have done to make data accessible for your end users. And I think it was really clear throughout your presentation that your users are your focus. And I think that's really how we can make the most valuable programs is to focus on those users. So with that, I think we'll sign off. And I really appreciate everyone coming today. I'll make a recording available on the NSGIC knowledge base within the next couple of days. And look forward to seeing you at the mid-year meeting and at the next interest group meeting. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Jordan.